So picture a scenario that is probably, playing out in an office right now. It's like 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And somewhere in this massive corporate headquarters, there's an accounts payable clerk. Let's just call her Maria.
Right.
And she's sitting at her desk, staring at 2 different monitors.
Yep.
On one screen, she has like hundreds of invoices. On the other, thousands of purchase orders. And she is manually reconciling them, just line by line, copying, pasting, checking, repeating.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I mean, the frustrating part of this isn't just the tedium, right? It's that Maria knows artificial intelligence could do this entire task in maybe 3 seconds. Her manager knows it, the IT department knows it, and yet every single Friday, the company is paying her to do it by hand.
It's just a perfect and honestly kind of a really bleak snapshot of the modern enterprise. I mean, Maria is sort of the human embodiment of this concept we're looking at today, which is the trillion-dollar enterprise AI deployment gap.
Yeah, that gap is just massive.
It is. She represents this huge reservoir of automatable, repetitive knowledge work that's just, sitting there hidden in plain sight, while these companies talk a really big game about technological transformation.
And that disconnect is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at a framework from EON AI Ventures and specifically diving into their new platform, which is called EON Solve IQ.
Right, exactly.
Our mission today is to really figure out why this huge gap between AI hype and actual workplace reality exists.
Yeah.
And then we'll explore this pretty radical framework they're proposing to turn, well, literally every employee into a software solution builder.
Which sounds crazy at first.
It totally does. So whether you're an executive who is just tired of spending millions on AI initiatives with like zero measurable return, or you're an everyday knowledge worker who is sick of doing robotic tasks while your company boasts online about being AI ready, this deep dive is for you. We're going to look at why that disconnect happens and how this platform is trying to fix it.
Yeah, and to really understand the scale of the problem, we kind of have to zoom out past Maria's desk for a second. The macro data on this deployment gap is actually staggering.
Really? How bad is it?
Well, if you look at the 2025 Stanford AI Index, it reveals that fewer than 5% of enterprises have actually deployed AI agents into their daily operations.
Wait, under 5%.
Less than 5%. Think about that. I mean, we have incredibly mature tools right now, advanced workflow builders, language models, code generation platforms, but the gap between what's technically possible and what is actually live in production has just never been wider.
But that makes absolutely no sense because, every single Fortune 500 company claims they're leveraging AI right now. Like every earnings call mentions it.
Oh, they definitely claim they are. But the reality inside the walls is very different. McKinsey's 2024 State of AI report found that 67% of managers can't even describe the AI fluency level of their own teams.
Wow, over 2/3.
Yeah, they aren't measuring it, which means they can't target upskilling, they can't assess if their infrastructure is ready, and they have no practical way to transition their workforce away from all that manual labor.
It essentially sounds like corporate America bought 1 million state-of-the-art gym memberships, right? And they printed out these beautiful certificates for the staff saying everyone understands fitness, but when you actually walk onto the gym floor, less than 5% of the people have ever picked up a dumbbell. They just have the lanyard.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it.
Yeah.
And the problem really compounds when leadership finally realizes, hey, we're just paying for unused gym memberships.
Right.
The default corporate reaction is almost always to just, trip by their way out of the problem. So they call in external consultants.
Classic move. Call in a major consulting firm, give them a massive budget, and tell them to fix all the workflows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the data shows this is largely a failed alternative. These engagements are incredibly heavy. I mean, they cost anywhere from $2 to $5 million. Yeah, and they take 12 to 18 months to complete. And crucially, they leave virtually no internal capability behind when the consultants eventually leave. The capability stays rented.
Because the company never actually learned how to lift the weights themselves. They just paid a very expensive personal trainer to lift the weights for them, and then the trainer went home.
Right.
The moment a new workflow problem pops up the following quarter, the company is totally helpless again.
Precisely. And this failure of the rented capability model, that's the core thesis driving EON AI Ventures. Their argument is that AI deployment is no longer a technology problem.
Right, because the software already works.
Exactly, the software works. And the workers who are closest to the friction, like Maria, they understand the problems perfectly. What's missing is a structured bridge between the two. Because theoretical training and expensive consultants are failing to produce actual daily operational tools, EON is proposing this total paradigm shift.
Okay.
They argue the enterprise needs to stop treating AI as a compliance or training exercise and start treating it as a practice layer.
Okay, let's define that. What does a practice layer actually look like in reality? Because this is where the EON Solve IQ platform comes into play, right?
Yes.
The framework describes it as a system working alongside their existing AI fluency program. But the end state isn't a multiple-choice quiz or some certificate of completion. The goal is a deployed, employee-owned automation solution that goes live in 30 days and saves measurable hours.
Right. And to understand why a 30-day deployment window is critical, we really have to look at the philosophy underpinning the platform. EON synthesized quite a bit of research on enterprise maturity and deployment frameworks.
And what did they find?
They concluded that most traditional software vendors completely ignore three fundamental realities of the modern workplace. First, the person closest to the problem sees the friction most clearly. An accounts payable clerk knows exactly where the data pipeline breaks down. A vice president sitting in a corner office looking at a dashboard, they do not.
That makes total sense. The person feeling the pain knows the exact shape of the pain. What are the other two realities?
So the second reality is that adoption, not technology, is the actual bottleneck.
Interesting.
Yeah, like if an IT department builds a clever solution in a vacuum without involving the people who actually have to use it every day, those end users will often just reject it out of frustration or a lack of trust.
Right, because it doesn't actually fit their workflow.
Exactly. And third, the capability has to stay inside the organization. Every time a solution is built and deployed, the process itself needs to produce a more AI-capable employee.
I mean, I understand the philosophy, but I definitely have to push back hard on this approach.
Okay, go for it.
If a company suddenly gives thousands of clerks, middle managers, and like logistics coordinators the green light to just start building their own AI tools, that sounds like a catastrophic security risk.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, shadow IT is already a massive headache for companies. How does a clerk with zero software engineering background build enterprise-grade automation without accidentally exposing customer data or just breaking the company's existing infrastructure?
It's a totally valid concern. It's the exact reason why this cannot be a free-for-all. You can't just hand employees a sandbox and wish them luck. You need a governing mechanism to control the chaos.
Got it.
So the framework details a highly structured 5-step journey within the Solve IQ platform. It's designed to mirror how top-tier internal innovation teams operate, but abstracted so a totally non-technical person can navigate it.
So walk me through that mechanism. If Maria wants to automate her Friday afternoon invoice nightmare, how does she actually go from being frustrated to deploying a safe solution without, writing a single line of code?
It starts with the first step, which is the 7-stage AI problem interview. The employee spends about 10 minutes chatting with an AI mentor.
Just chatting.
Just chatting. The crucial detail here is that this happens entirely in plain language. The AI is essentially acting as a translator. As the employee complains about their workflow, saying things like, I hate copying these vendor IDs into the spreadsheet, the underlying large language model is extracting the intent.
Ooh.
Yeah, it maps those complaints to known data structures and generates what they call a problem card. This card calculates a technical feasibility score, estimates the financial impact, and maps out which stakeholders would be affected.
That is a major shift because it forces the employee to articulate a structural business problem. Rather than just venting about a slow process, it kind of translates frustration into architecture.
Exactly.
So once the system generates this problem card, what's the next step?
Steps 2 and 3 are matching and scoping. The platform takes that specific problem card and matches it against 20 internal solution templates.
Only 20.
Only 20, yeah. Because the data indicates that these 20 specific patterns actually cover about 95% of the typical operational problems that can be automated in an enterprise.
Really? 95%.
Yeah, we're talking about tasks like data reconciliation, document processing, approval workflows, and anomaly detection.
So the employee is never starting from a blank page. They're starting with a proven architectural template. But how do you prevent scope creep? I can easily see an employee getting excited and trying to make this tool do 50 different things, which guarantees it'll never actually get finished.
Oh, for sure. That's where the scoping phase comes in, and it uses the Moscow framework.
What?
Moscow, MOSCOW. It's a prioritization technique widely used by professional product managers. The AI mentor walks the employee through defining exactly what the solution must have, should have, could have, and won't have.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it forces them to aggressively narrow the focus to just the core functionality needed to solve the immediate problem.
Which brings us to step 4,
Yeah.
the actual build. The framework claims this phase takes just 2 to 5 active days.
Yeah.
That speed is honestly hard to wrap your head around for enterprise software. They mentioned it happens in an environment called Vibe Flow, utilizing an auto-generated launch kit. What is that?
So think of the vibe flow environment not as a place where you write lines of code, but as a visual conversational canvas. The launch kit automatically produces the necessary logic blocks based on that plain English interview.
Okay.
The user is essentially just approving and connecting the logic while the platform handles all the underlying Python scripts or API calls.
It strikes me as being very similar to TurboTax. Like when you use TurboTax, the software doesn't try to teach you the complexities of the federal tax code.
Right,
It
exactly.
just asks you plain English questions about your life, like did you buy a house, did you have a kid? Then, on the back end, it translates your everyday answers into the highly complex tax forms required by the IRS. Solve IQ seems to be doing the exact same thing, but translating workflow problems into software engineering.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanism at play here. It abstracts the complexity, allowing the user to focus strictly on the business logic, which is what they actually understand better than anyone else anyway. It compresses a development cycle that usually takes business quarters into mere days.
But, okay, this brings me right back to my earlier skepticism. Just because you can build something quickly using a TurboTax-style interface doesn't mean the final product is actually safe to plug into the company's live ecosystem.
Right.
I mean, fast software is often broken software.
Ah,
How does EON prevent a poorly thought-out automation from just crashing on day one?
okay, so this is where we hit the fifth step, which is arguably the most critical, honestly fascinating feature of the entire framework. They call it the tribunal gate.
The tribunal gate.
Yeah. Before any employee-built solution is allowed to be deployed into the company's live operations, it has to survive contact with three adversarial AI avatars.
Adversarial avatars. So like a virtual firing squad designed to poke holes in your software.
Essentially, yes, it's an automated, rigorous validation process. The first avatar you face is the economist.
Okay.
This AI analyzes the workflow and demands hard proof of the return on investment. It forces the builder to justify the financial value of the tool, ensuring the company isn't deploying software that, costs more to run than it saves.
Proving financial value is a great filter. But a tool can be highly profitable on paper and still fail completely if the staff flat out refuses to use it.
Which is exactly why the second avatar is the
A
psychologist.
psychologist AI.
Yeah. This one analyzes the human element. It looks at the behavioral delta meaning, the difference between what employees are doing now and what the new tool will actually require them to do. It asks questions like, have you accounted for adoption resistance? Does this force your coworkers to drastically change their daily habits?
Oh, wow.
If the AI calculates that the friction of learning the new tool outweighs the pain of the old process, it flags high adoption risk.
That is incredibly smart because it directly addresses the reality you mentioned earlier that adoption is the real bottleneck.
Yeah.
And the final avatar.
The third is the pragmatist. This avatar basically represents the IT department's worst nightmares.
Okay, I love this one already.
It asks all the brutal operational reality questions. For example, it analyzes the data connections and asks, hey, when the third-party API updates its security protocols on a Monday morning and the data bridge breaks, who is specifically responsible for maintaining this tool?
Right, because an API is just the bridge allowing two pieces of software to talk to each other. If Salesforce changes their code, the bridge collapses. The pragmatist forces the employee to think about the entire life cycle of the software, including maintenance, rather than just the fun building part.
Exactly.
If the builder can't answer these questions, I assume the tool gets rejected.
Well, it doesn't just get rejected and deleted. It gets sent back for iteration. The avatars point out the flaws, and the builder has to fix them before trying the tribunal again. It's true, built-in governance. If a solution survives the tribunal, it is fundamentally sound enough to survive reality.
That resolves the shadow IT concern almost entirely. You aren't just letting employees loose, you are forcing them through an incredibly strict automated gauntlet. But let's look at the financial reality of rolling this out. If a company is going to deploy this platform to thousands of employees, the economics really have to justify the cost.
You do. And EON lays out the math behind this, and it provides a very clear model. The SolveIQ platform costs $200 per user per month.
Okay.
So if we look at a mid-sized enterprise with, say, 500 knowledge workers, that requires an annual investment of $1.2 million.
That is a significant upfront check for a CFO to write. How does the framework justify a $1.2 million price tag just for the capability to build tools?
They justify it through a highly conservative ROI model.
Yeah.
If that entire 500-person company produces just 30 deployed solutions over the course of an entire year, which, by the way, is a very low success rate,
Right.
and each of those 30 solutions saves 20 hours a month, the direct annual value return to the company is $540,000.
So even in a scenario where very few people successfully build something, you're still seeing a 45% payback on the initial investment.
Exactly. And that 45% payback is calculated strictly on time saves. It doesn't even factor in the secondary economic benefits. It doesn't calculate the massive reduction in human error.
Right. Or employee retention.
Exactly. Because people like Maria are no longer doing miserable, repetitive data entry, and it doesn't calculate the overarching competitive advantage of a company that can adapt its internal software in days rather than quarters.
But if we assume the platform works as intended, 30 solutions across 500 people is an incredibly low bar. You would expect much higher engagement. And this brings up a concept in the framework that really stood out, the ecosystem flywheel. They argue this isn't just about one person building one tool in isolation.
Right, the real value comes from the compounding effect across the enterprise.
They detail a feature called the internal solution hub. Now, typically, internal corporate app directories just become graveyards of broken, redundant
Oh,
tools.
absolutely.
But because everything here has passed the tribunal, it's high quality. When a solution is deployed, it gets published company-wide, and it's engineered for one-click adaptation. So if Maria builds her brilliant invoice reconciler, John in the HR department can find it, click a button, adapt the underlying template for his payroll reconciliation, and immediately deploy it. The value of Maria's initial build just doubled without any extra effort on her part.
That cultural shift is pushed even further by another mechanism called paired build matching.
How does that work?
The system actively monitors the internal hub, and it automatically pairs employees who are struggling to solve a problem with internal mentors who have already successfully passed the tribunal with a similar tool. It prevents people from building in silos.
It essentially organically generates a community of practice. But SolveIQ is actually only one piece of a much larger puzzle EON is putting together, right?
It is. SolveIQ represents what EON calls their Door 3 offering, which is focused strictly on internal AI operations. But it runs in parallel with another product they offer called Venture Builder.
Let's define Venture Builder, because jumping from internal operations to external products can be confusing. How do the two connect?
Think of Venture Builder as an entrepreneurial bootcamp. EON has been using it to help individuals build and launch marketable AI products for the open market tools designed to generate revenue.
Okay.
What they realize is that the mechanism for building a profitable external product is exactly the same as the mechanism for building a cost-saving internal tool.
You still need to identify a problem, scope it, build it, and test its viability.
Exactly. So SolveIQ takes that proven venture builder mechanism and simply turns it inward for the enterprise. Together, they create a dual-track system for a company.
Right.
On one track, teams can use Venture Builder to create new, revenue-generating products to sell to customers. On the other track, the workforce uses SolveIQ to build internal automations to save the company time and money.
And both tracks are training the workforce to be highly fluent in AI development. That brings us to how leadership actually monitors all of this. Because if a CEO is running this massive dual-track operation, they need a way to prove it is working to their board of directors.
That is handled by what EON calls the EAFI dashboard, the Enterprise AI Fluency Index. It monitors both tracks in real time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it tracks the rising AI fluency level of the individual employees as they build, and it tracks the real-time operational impact of the deployed tools. It finally gives leadership a single board-ready metric to prove their AI strategy isn't just some marketing talking point. It solves that McKinsey statistic we discussed earlier where managers couldn't measure their teams.
Okay, let's pull all of these threads together. The core takeaway from analyzing this framework is that artificial intelligence in the enterprise can no longer be viewed as just a technology problem. It certainly shouldn't be a theoretical research project relegated to a few engineers, and it cannot continue to be a massive rented line item for external consultants who leave nothing behind. If platforms like EON SolveIQ function as designed, AI is fundamentally an operational capability. It is a capability that must be developed directly by the workforce, feeling the friction. The era of handing out participation certificates is ending. The goal now is creating actual deployed solutions that eliminate repetitive work.
It's a compelling argument for democratizing development, but looking at the mechanics of this framework raises a rather profound, unmentioned implication that I really think is worth pondering.
What's that?
If this practice layer is genuinely successful, if everyday clerks, HR managers, and logistics coordinators become the primary architects of their own software solutions through plain language and AI mentors, what actually happens to the traditional corporate IT department?
Wow, that is a fascinating shift to consider.
Right. Do they eventually stop building internal tools entirely? Does the era of an employee submitting an IT ticket and waiting 6 months for a minor workflow fix just end?
It really might.
It seems highly plausible that in an environment like this, the IT department of the future will fundamentally evolve. They will simply become the human overseers of these AI tribunals. They won't write the daily operational code anymore. They'll just set the parameters for the economist, the psychologist, and the pragmatist, and they will govern the automations that the rest of the workforce is building.
The transition from being the builders to being the governors of the builders. That represents a massive redistribution of corporate power and workflow dynamics. It's definitely something to chew on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you head back to work today, we highly encourage you to take a hard look at your own daily workflows. Look at those tedious tasks you dread doing on a Friday afternoon. Where are your own Maria moments hiding? Because the tools required to solve them might no longer be locked away behind an 18-month IT backlog. They might just be waiting for a 10-minute conversation.